This is Lance Strumpf, and I'm a attorney at law, and I'm also a real estate broker with the California Department of Real Estate. I had a client, or have a client, who owns some really, really special properties throughout Southern California. And one of the properties he owned or owns is an apartment building in Newport Beach, and a really cool market and grill downstairs, which was right at where the Balboa Ferry crosses onto Balboa Island. When my client bought the market, he inherited the lease with the tenant. But after a few years, the tenant decided he didn't want to operate the market anymore. He was having some issues at home, nothing terrible, but he wanted to sell. He hired the Veld Group to represent him in the sale with the existing lease. And the problem was that my client didn't like necessarily any of the candidates that were being brought in as the new operator of the market. And he wanted to maintain the tradition of the market. There was no way he could do that because basically he wouldn't have any control over the tenant in terms of, what they carry, the menu. When I met Ryan, I tried to explain it to him that there was a certain amount of discretion involved in the owner accepting an assignment of the lease from the new tenant. And Ryan knew the law very well, probably better than me. And he said, well, your client cannot refuse this, and he cannot unreasonably withhold consent. In the end, Ryan and I structured a deal where my client bought out the business of his existing tenant, took control of the market himself. He was able to do something at the market that was his vision, and it's been very successful. We were sort of adversaries and butting heads, and we ended up working together, which I think is terrific. And I thought he was terrific, and he was knowledgeable and super persistent. And with creative thinking, we were able to come up with a solution. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, air travel pretty much stopped, right? The company that I was working for had a very nice backlog, which may or may not have carried them through COVID, but it was pretty clear that the founder of the company needed he needed to sell his company in order for the company to survive. I'll just put it to you that way. There wasn't a lot of time, and I needed somebody really good to find me a really good buyer. So I called Michael, and he said, yeah, I'm glad to be on board. We were successfully able to get bridge loans, which is unsecured bridge loans. Can you imagine that? And we eventually closed the deal. It was a transaction, the better part of $100 million. The company was able to continue to deliver product to Boeing. Boeing was very happy with that because without these particular parts that were made by this company, these giant fuselages would be basically stuck on an assembly line. 100 people and all their families, and basically the American dream was kept alive. Michael was by my side the whole time in procuring the buyer, helping us to get these bridge loans to keep the company alive during the due diligence period and to expedite the due diligence. And he participated in the due diligence, and he earned the trust of the buyers. And that made a huge difference in getting the deal closed. I'm never the smartest guy in the room. I don't want to be. I want to learn. But when these buyers came in, oh my gosh, these guys had qualifications, and they were from the top schools in the country, Harvard Business School and Wharton and all these places. I can tell you, without Michael's help to navigate all of these negotiations to get our client a good deal coming out the other end, they would have chewed me up and spit me out, at least as a business broker. Michael is a very intelligent guy, but he also doesn't necessarily say anything unless he has to. And then when he does speak, it matters, and he got their attention, and they said, okay, we're not going to be able to take advantage of this person. And that's what I appreciated about him. He was brilliant. He made me look really good.